text messages from people saying, I'm waiting for the Ga-Dangme session of your show. Well, it's here. It's here. It's about 20 minutes to 9 on the Super Morning Show. And I have to say, I'm a little bit nervous because my landlord is here. And after living in this city for 10 years, my grasp of the language is still abysmal. And I always worry that one day I'll be kicked out because I haven't learnt enough.
Very soon.
Indeed. And as we count down to my exile, we welcome the president of the Ga-Dangme Council, and he needs no introduction whatsoever. Let's say good morning to Nii Ayikoi Otoo.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Indeed. How would you say that in Ga? How would you welcome our audience to this important conversation in Ga?
Well, it depends upon the occasion. When we are expecting somebody coming to us, it gets there and say, hey, Nyabake. For example, it's taking you so long, but you are here now. Nyabake.
Right.
Hello, Namei. Namei. And it's not different from the Awawa too. Which you say is no different. You can also say awa too. Or you go and embrace the person and say atu, which goes with some gesture. When you fair your twibolo, one banya de umanye, one binya can you fit away, no catching a which one will actually be there. That is speaking it, putting it in Ga. All the listeners are welcome to join us to be part of this program.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And we were talking about this off air. And of course, we're here because we want to learn. And there's so much to learn about the history of the Ga-Dangmes. But we were talking off air about the central role that the Ga-Dangmes play, just by geographical location and the importance of the land they occupy and own, and how this is now the recognized center of our country, the capital of our country, and how that ought to be reflected in our understanding and grasp of the language. Later in the show, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Ga-Dangme, the Ga-Dangmes today, and the role that they are playing and should play in our national development. But let's start from the beginning. Let's start from the origin story. We all are told that the Ga-Dangmes came from Nigeria. But surely it wasn't a direct flight. So could you tell us a little bit about the journey that brought you to where you occupy in Ghana today?
Well, we all have learned the histories, not because we are historians necessarily, but we've gotten bits and pieces. And the point is that we had a Ghana historian, a whole professor, Nii Ayikoi Otoo, who taught history at the University of Ghana for a very long time. He looked at what they call the Ga and their neighbors from 1600 to 1724, thereabouts. But unfortunately, she did not publish that book. And it still remains, if you go to the African Studies and here you want to get a manuscript, you can get it. Then, after Rattray, came Mrs. Field, who wrote the Social Organization of the Ghana People. She is not a historian, but I'm told that as a sociologist, following what happened with the Asante history with Rattray, she also was, asked or commissioned by the colonial people to look at the Ghana. So she wrote 2 major books, the Social Organization of Ghana People, and then the medicine, religion and medicine of the Ghana people. Most of them are out of print. And now you have other, writers like Dr. The one who wrote about the Ghana and the Asante history, Randolph.
Randolph, yes.
Yeah, Dr. Randolph. And that's also available. When we were young, we had this book they called Short History of Gold Coast. Later on, I saw it reprinted, Short History of Ghana by W.E. Ward. So they are a bit scattered, because it appears that they could not come together to agree on one historical textbook. And that has been the bane. But these are some of the things we are looking at. And when you talk to them, they will begin to talk about copyright issues. People have written, how do you? I said, yes, but if you acknowledge them, what will be the problem? Try and put them together. Acknowledge that these are my sources, and then we can. So, as for the historical one, as Wisdom put it, the Nigeria one is well documented, this Ile-Ife and the rest. And then the language, I lived in Nigeria for some 4 months or so. On my way coming, we stopped, the border was closed. So we were then at the Lume border. And then when cars are coming to park and the people felt that you were coming to block their view, they said, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So I asked myself, what is this? Oh yeah, is it not the same we say, come on, move fast for oh yeah. And then there too, I heard things like the Kutemeta. I haven't seen you for the past 3 days. And the same thing we say in Ga, Bietene Nabu. We always say Bietene, and they will tell you Kutemeta. I haven't seen you for the past 3 days and things like that, So that is well documented. The rest, as I said, we need to put them together. And when we lost the Gamanye, Nade de Umadro, we decided to use it as an opportunity to write and do some kind of renaissance. So that's why I brought this book. I will leave it with you, you. And you see a lot of the things, how the history came about and some of the cultural practices and all that. We try to really come out with it because we realized that for some time it was not, in the public domain. And we got Professor Nii Ayikoi Otoo herself to write the historical culture and development, And then we have younger people like von Hesse, historians, who also put together a few of these things. And I had in one of these March or Ghana Man thing, giving some thoughts on the role the Ga-Dangmes have played and continue to play in Ghana. So I was on your City FM, your sister radio station, and they put it on YouTube and they call it a short history of the Gans. So I expanded it into this one, and it's all here, But anyway, let's go on as we speak.
Yes, I mean, in moving on, you've talked about the Nigeria bit, and Randolph would capture that Benin, Togo. So you're right, in there. But there's also another school of thought, and the song that we actually played that you came all the way from Israel. Yes, I mean, it will tell you about how the Gans came from Israel to Egypt, to Ethiopia, Sudan, and where they are today. Where does that story lie in all of the history? How do we sit with that?
Well, it all depends upon who is telling the story. I mean, none of us could say we were around in those years, and some also try to let it look like, some religious aspects and things. So those connections have been made, that we are from Israel. I mean, the 12 tribes of Israel, there's something about some Gath or something.
God, yes.
They also claim that, but as I'm saying, the best thing is to try and document it once and for all. And this is one of the projects that we intend to look at. No problem about copyright. Let's make sure that we pay due attention and recognition to whoever started what, and then situate it after all. In land cases, now that all of you are learning law, you know that we talk about traditional history, but we said that you should try and situate it as to what is happening now, from whatever it is that you have said. If we say that we are one people who believe in circumcision, and that from days of old, we've always had boys circumcised on the 8th day. Is it happening today? That is how you validate that historical record. And no grandchild is born who is never circumcised. It's impossible for you to call yourself a guy you are uncircumcised. on the 8th day, we will circumcise you and make sure that we also adore you.
Yeah.
For people to know that you came and you are living. You didn't die. But you are, and then we give you a name to be identified. You understand?
Of course. I like the Kujemo anyway. It's an event that I enjoy so
Exactly.
much. But let's get to, you've talked about, so you're working on, you've talked about the history, but you've talked about how you're trying to put all of it together. But let's look at this, coming into Ghana. We've consistently talked about Ga-Dangme. You're president of the Ga-Dangme Council. Who are the Gans? Who are the Dangmes? Which groups are the Ga groups and which groups are the Dangme groups?
Oh, you just can look at the language and you can fairly come to a conclusion who are Gans and who are Dangmes. I mean, when we were growing up, all we knew was fancy. So up to today, if somebody is speaking tree, they will tell you about you fancy. You follow it and you see. Or they will tell you because we had nothing to do with tree language. With time, we got to know that you have Aquapim tree, you have Asante tree, you have Fanti, you have is it the Hunter people?
A Hunter, yes.
And those in the Bono who start everything with Be this, Be that. From these different, distinctions, you are able to say that this is not the tree I know from Asante, the others. The same way, when somebody speaks Dangme, you see the difference between what he is speaking and what the Ga speak. And so you can say the Pom people like to be associated more with Gans than the Dangme. But you can start from Pom, your Pram, your Ningo, your Shai Usudoku, your Kroboland and all that. And the language is not too, different, the distinction, if you listen carefully. Because I remember when we were learning English at Lagos, what they told us was that no language is difficult. So when I hear those things, I become annoyed. China, today, we are speaking Chinese. But we were told that what I chin-chan is this language, but indeed it is a language. No language is difficult, but languages are unfamiliar. If you are not familiar with the language, then you think it is difficult. But once you get to understand and become familiar, you find that it is not a problem at all. After all, what is language? It's all sounds. Yeah. We are making sounds, different types of sounds, and then there you are. So you find that, boom, we speak Ga. I'm told that at a certain time of the day or so, they speak some kind of Dangme, but the rest speak the Dangme. And you who have lived in Accra most of the time will know that their language, when they are speaking, is a little different from us. That's all the difference. But the cultural, nuances and whatever it is, you find that we are the same. That is why we now decided that we call ourselves Ga-Dangmes.
Okay.
Because there's something in numbers. So when we say Ga-Dangmes, then you see a group which is a bit larger than Dangme and then Ga separately.
And I'm trying to understand, you've explained the Dangme bit. So when it comes to Ga, for instance, some have said you have the Gamashi, you have the La, you have the Teshi. So tell us about, the Ga groups also.
So you start from the Gamashi, where you have around 8, Asre, Abula, Sempe, Akumbaje, Otubro.
You have 8 what?
8 quarters,
okay,
if you like. Yeah. Now we've lost the English or Jamestown. Not necessarily that they are no longer Gans, but they said that they were paramount and that they wanted to be restored. And I'll go into it a little bit. Now, after you leave the Gamashi area, then you come to Usula, Teshinungwa, and Tema. These people, by operation of law, were put under the Ga Manche, who became the only paramount, and all of them became divisions. So you had only one Ga traditional council.
Okay.
And somewhere along the line, the La people started, agitating that they are not necessarily under the Ga. So there was this urban committee report. Urban committee was set up to look into the history and whether or not they really all belong to, the Gamanche, and then they didn't publish that report. Then, well, because they realized that there were going to be these problems we are facing now, so they refused to publish it. Then after that, when Nii Mugi was very sick, he had stroke for a long time before he died. He printed a piece of paper saying that he had elevated all the others from Gamache all the way to Tema into paramountcies. And then they wrote to the National House of Chiefs asking them to change their status from division to paramount. Then they said, no, we also work with law, the Chieftaincy Act. And so we want to set up a small committee to go into this matter, whether or not he has that authority to do what he's doing. And then in the course of which people went and said all sorts of things. And at the end of the day, they decided that, look, if you claim to be paramount on your own already, from Ngleshi Alata, then to Osula Teshinungwa, we are going to give you your paramounts. So they became paramounts. Now, what it goes with in law is that then they're going to have their own traditional councils. What it means is that the power of the Gamanche is going to be reduced. Because they used to sit together, through the Native Administration Ordinance far back as 1925 and thereabouts. They were all under one chief, and there was that unity, But after this new committee's report, I think Nabila was then the president who set up, and there was no Ga-Dangme even on that committee. At the end of the day, they came to the conclusion that, well, they are on their own. And so what has happened now? And I remember when Amugi died, Kintaki Tawia III, popularly known as Joe Branson, came on the scene. And I was one of his advisors. And when he mooted this idea, I told him that, are you not going to get trouble, create problem for yourself? Because you say you are elevating all of them to paramountcies, which will go with the setting up of traditional councils. You are going to lose. He said, no, we have decided to come together like the Asanteman Council and have a Gamanche like the Otumfo. You see, so we are not worried at all. We have come to those conclusions. We can do that. Eventually, when the thing came, everybody is now on their own.
So today, when you say Gamanche, which area has the Gamanche?
More of Gamashi.
And which includes Jamestown?
Yes. Okay. But there they have their own traditional council now. So because the Jamestown Manche is so there are about 6 now that go form the traditional council if you go. But the present one, that's the Kentucky Tekuchu, has elevated all of them to paramountcies, and we are now doing the legal paperwork to ensure that the membership of the Regional House of Chiefs is actually amended and they are included.
If you just joined us, our guest this morning is Nii Ayikoi Otoo. He's the president of the Ga-Dangme Council, and we're getting quite an education about the history of the Ga-Dangmes and, of course, the role they're playing in today's Ghana. So, we're interested in those quarters, but before we get to those, maybe briefly, what do we know about the reasons why the Ga-Dangmes chose this part of Ghana to settle?
Well, you see, historically, they established their kingdom at Ayawaso. It's not here, a little inland, And then through wars, the historical account of Professor Kokoi Odote shows that because of wars and the rest, they eventually had to move from those parts to come down to the coast. So they didn't come straight to the coast, but they established the Greater Accra, kingdom there with their kings actually, and then had other, sovereignty over the coastal areas, but they were predominantly there. That is what explains why they were those who gave the lands to the Danes and the Dutch to build the suites, to build all the forts that you see dotted around. And there are historical records. If you take the Nii Ayikoi's book, you find the treaties that were signed and the land, conveyances that were given to these people. And so they were collecting royalties from them. And the history is that because those who came were doing trade, they had the closest, or if like easy access to them, and were doing a lot of trade and making money. And those in the hinterland, like had envy for them and thought they also wanted a route. It's like you can only come if you pass through the Ga-Manche or some of his, vassal kings and things like that. So wars erupted, Akwamu and the rest, and they were somehow defeated. That's why you find us in Lume and then what do you call the other one? Benin and Togo and the rest. Yeah. So some left and went and settled in Kliji and some places. And they went there and established the system along the very route that they left. In other words, that they are from one stock. And so if they go and they are from Gbese, they want to live there as Gbese people. Right. If they go and they are Sempe, they want to live as Sempe people. So the names that you are mentioning, this is how they came about. So the names perpetuated. And in Ghana, when you mention your name, we should be able to say where you are coming from. Right. Some of them are so peculiar. And you can't say Papa and then you are thinking of any other place apart from Asre. You can't say Ayite Ayikoi or something and it's not either Akumaji or Jamestown and things like that. Nunu, Abola. Anybody, you hear Nunu and it is Abola and things like that, So we have this peculiar thing about us. So this is what happened. That's how we eventually got here.
Wow.
But it didn't start from here.
Tell us about these quarters. You mentioned them earlier.
Yeah.
Maybe you can go through them and then perhaps give us a bit.
As I said, I'll leave you this book because we said it's a renaissance and we're telling the story.
Thank you.
So I'll read just the preface for you.
Sure.
Accra, Historical Culture and Development, Professor Nii Ayikoi Otoo. Gamashi is one of the 14 states of Ga-Dangme. It is also called Central Accra and forms part of the capital city of Ghana. It is a showpiece of tradition and modernity, history, culture and development, continuity and change. Gamashi has 7 divisions, I said 8 rather. 7 divisions or Akucho or Akuche. These are Asre, Gbese, Abola, Otubrohum, Sempe, Akumajin, and Glesialata. Each has a number of subdivisions or way, ancestral homes under it. Each quarter is headed by a paramount chief under the supreme authority of the Ga-Manche, His Royal Majesty King Taki Teku. That is what the position looks like today. But this is how the quarters have been, and they are there. If you go to Gamashi, you find all of them. And they are those who go to the Ga-Traditional Council to constitute the Ga-Traditional Council now. These are the divisions that you have, and you know them by their names. Ankara. You cannot mention an Ankara who is not from Otubrohum. Once you hear the name Ankara, that person comes from Otubrohum, and things like that. So these are the structures as, we came to meet them.
It's wonderful. Let's talk about the Ga-Dangmes today, the Ga-Dangmes in Ghana today. You occupy the most valuable land in this country. I mean, land in your kingdom is bought and sold for far more than, land that has gold in it. Everybody wants land from you. Is that reflected in the lifestyle, or not even the lifestyle, but the socio-cultural development of the Ga-Dangme people?
Well, you see, you become a capital and you are a young nation. you need to develop, and you need land. So what happened was that Kwame Nkrumah brought about this compulsory acquisition instruments, State Lands Acts and the rest, And using that, he acquired quite a lot of Ghana lands. It's not all Ghana lands that were sold by the people. That's a mistake that people make. They just open their mouth and talk by heart. You have sold all your lands. Airport, have we sold it to anybody? Ministries, have we sold it to anybody? All the other lands where we have states, institutions on, did we sell? University of Ghana, did we sell to anybody? A lot of them were acquired. And that is something that most people don't seem to see. That, look, the whole of Dansoma, I was a grown-up, 1972. I was already in secondary school when Achampon decided to have a Dansoma Estates, low-cost housing. I took all that land there by executive instruments, and that is what has been going on. They've taken all the lands. The one remaining for us, our neighbors have come from outside, and they also want a place to stay, and we got to find accommodation for them. And so you give them land to go and build on, and before you realize it has become an enclave of Twi-speaking people or Ewe-speaking people, and they refuse to speak and learn your language, which was not what was happening when we were growing up on the streets of Accra. Everybody spoke Ghana. The high life music that you play, you started your Ghana month with some of those high life. The king of high life, E.T. Mensah, is not a Ghana. Almost everything that was started, were Ghanaians. We used to go abroad only to go and learn professions. When you see a Ghana man being sent outside, he's going to become a doctor or a lawyer. Subsequently, we started having engineers, pharmacists, and accountants. And in this book, I keep saying, I'll leave it to you, the role Ga-Dangmes have played and continue to play in Ghana. You see the many of the firsts that we used to have in almost all the professions. We had firsts in so many of them. Now with this Accra becoming capital and all kinds of, all people moving down here to come and live here, and I don't blame them. I blame governments after governments. You live abroad, you can work far away from where you live, isn't it? Because there is transportation, and you can get whatever you want there. But if you leave the people in the village, there's no electricity, there's no water, and somebody will tell you what, he came to Accra for the first time to realize that you can go on the wall and switch something and then light will come. They've never seen light. They don't know. I mean, we grew up just switching on the light and like, let me crack this joke. You a young man, a young person sleeping with your parents in the room, and then you feel like you relate. Then you go and blah, you switch on the light. Hey, who told you that? Ask Sukade that I can't tell she call Sukade. You have to ask permission. That is how. And you just go, you turn on the pipe. I remember once I was sitting in a taxi going somewhere, and we got to Circle in those days, Kwame Nkrumah Circle, what we now have Dubai. And then it had lights, new lights, and there was this girl, obviously from the village, who was, shouting, hey, Papa, hey, look, these are lights, new lights going and coming. He hasn't seen anything like that before. You understand? So it's unfortunate that the population explosion is what has caused all this. They used to. I went to Fiji. I had friends. Hey, in Krakasa there, I semo kwe majibobiane kwe minofio kwe. Today some people say sakasanu, wukasafinu, and things like that. These are the things they say. It's because the numbers, are such that we have been overwhelmed.
But honorable. Making that point, I mean, you say Abakuma.
Yes.
You say, may strangers come to settle amongst us. You're welcoming.
Yes.
So this should be expected that people would come and live
No
with you.
problem. They are not coming because we said they should come. They are coming because this is the capital. This is the place to be. Will you be broadcasting in some village somewhere?
No.
Yeah, so that's why you are here.
But long before, long before that was actually, this is a Ghana thing, and I heard it the first time from
it's true.
Professor Odote.
No, it's true.
She said, look, the Ghans have always been welcoming.
Yes.
And the
We've
Ghans
always been.
have always been welcoming, and the Ghans could actually, create a stool for you, give you a small town to settle in. So even before the capital, even before people came in here, that was your nature.
Yes, it is. We agree. But when we say you should come and don't come and bite us and take everything from us. Come and show respect. I was High Commissioner in Canada. And for the first time, when I spoke about chiefs, say, oh, we also have chiefs. So what do you mean? What they call the Inuits or the Red Indians and the rest, they are said to be the landowners. Yeah. All those other people came from Europe, America, and the rest to come and live there. They pay homage to them at every ceremony, and they have somebody who pours libation. Somebody will pour. In Canada, if you have lived there and you've gotten yourself into official programs, they said before they start, they call a Red Indian, who they refer to as Inuit, to pour a libation and to acknowledge that these are the landowners. We came and met them. Like us, they have also been overwhelmed. Just like the Red Indians in America. They have also been overwhelmed. See, but because of our fighting spirit, we never want to lie low. That's why you see us always making noise. And when we make noise, they tell us we are being tribalistic. They will be the first to rather say that, oh, these are people who are becoming tribalistic. Things have happened which have affected us constitutionally. Yes, we brought Kwame Nkrumah and made him who he was until he became president of this country. How many people know that he stood at what we now call Odudu, which we used to call Ashe Dukateke? We brought him and put him there. And the Ga women that they mentioned, Akwa Shoshosho and Dede Ashkinshan, people were trading at Makola who had money. We are all children of Makola women. Rawlings, what did he come to do to us? He came and destroyed Makola. Where is the logic? I remember once we were doing logic in sit form, somebody said that some people are doing something in the house. And then you decide to go and destroy the house. You just destroy the house. The people are still there. That people, those who caused the trouble, why don't you deal with them? Came and demolished the whole of Makola. And people went home, and that was it. They also tried to do the same with Salaga Market, that they are going to, refurbish, do it again, modding, and that's it. They demolished and never did it. It was going to happen to La, but now we are in elections. So somebody decides that let's take money and go and do it. Otherwise, we won't get one vote in La. When you have gone to demolish the whole holy hospital they have. It was going to happen. And the same part of La, which is, look at the land that has been taken for the trade fair. There, you go and work there. Yeah. Is it something that we give to an individual? The state took it. I remember the first time we had trade fair and there was so much food and, we were rushing to go and walk about, not to buy anything but to eat, and the rest. That land is gone. You understand? And they demolished parts. They are now trying to do something about it. They've taken all the lands, and today, Mahama is going to Greater Accra Regional House of Chiefs to tell them he's coming to set up a committee of inquiry into that. When Occupy Ghana also started asking them to publish the list, was it not in this country? Have they agreed to it? Right to Information Commission, they kept asking them, please, provide the information. We want to know who are the beneficiaries. Have they done it? And because we are in election year, you go to tell our chief stories that you are interested in their...
And Occupy Ghana has been asking the current administration.
That is what I'm saying. Are they not the same?
Are they the same?
Are they not the same when it comes to the same?
Are they the same?
Look, what happened? Diversity implementation. Who got everything?
I don't know. Tell me.
Go and do your research there. Now
You're
that,
here now.
That there's Google, there's no need to argue. I've told people with Google, no more need to any argument. Just Google, diversity implementation. Where did in Sawam go? Where did the GNTC go? So just go and Google. It will come and you see.
The food cannery and all.
All that. So, I mean, you know.
But
so they were doing the same state grab. Today, because of elections, we have gone to tell those things. You think they are fools? Those who are NDC can follow him, but the others there who will never buy. Look, you are making the promise, not that you are telling them when we come, we release those lands which have been taken and they are not being used to you. But you are now coming to set up a commission of after you have gotten my vote. So if the committee doesn't come out, what happens? You say you are holding the feet of government to the fire. Have they been answering you? All the premises that they
But
made.
all governments have disappointed the Ga-Dangme people when it comes to returning lands to them.
But they've done some good work somehow. It's the state grab, which is annoying. But they've done some good work. And then let me finish with this Mahama business. The constitution has no retrospective effect. We all know, not so.
Yeah.
So how does it go and tell them that if you take land and you don't make use of the land, you should give it back to the people? From which year? Those lands taken by Kwame Nkrumah, Buzia, all those who keep coming and taking our lands. Is that what he's talking about? The constitution has no retrospective effect. So it's rather a matter of, negotiations. And that's why I said some of them have done well. To get Tema Development Corporation, TDC, they took Nungwa, Pong, and Tema lands. To create all that, how many Ghana people are there? How many? The same thing after the 39, is it 38 or 39 earthquake, when they decided to build estate houses to resettle the people. How many Ghana or Ga-Dangmes got it? This is what brought Atokwashi and his Gashifimokwe and Gamashipong, Gamanom. When they were their houses that got damaged as a result of the earthquake, immediately they finished, they started using political connection to give it to other people. You see.
We're talking to Nii Ayikoi Otoo. He's the president of the Ga-Dangme Council. We're learning a lot about the Ga-Dangme people and particularly the role they're playing in today's Ghana. You've had reason to complain on a number of occasions about cultural appropriation, if you will, when people, don't recognize the Ga-Dangme people as the originators of certain things, or don't recognize certain national figures as being from the Ga-Dangme people. The most recent example being Tete Kwashi and the unfortunate little gaff when he was referred to as someone from Mampong, which he isn't. I've heard you talk about Yoke Gari and other examples. I mean, tell us about that. How does it feel to be, originators of things that now are not even associated with you?
We have that resilience, so that one I can tell you. I will look at Shatawale alone. Danganyama Mesa. He's a guy, and with all the rest that are into the business. And yet, you get him, and it's like, a giant amongst them. And that is what the role we've continued to play, It's unfortunate, as I said, when we're growing up, anybody who came to Accra tried to learn our language. But with the numbers, huge numbers, and the fact that where they are, they find themselves, like surrounded by the same people. And so sometimes you try to understand that if I'm living at, where do you say you live? Abokobi,
yes.
Yeah. And maybe those in the immediate surroundings are all speaking Twi, if you like. How do you learn the Ga? But it was not the case. They were then in a minority. So when they came, they quickly learned, and spoke Ga. Now the attempt is no longer there, and I blame it on our first administration, 2000. In 2000, some of my children were still going to school, and they were given pieces of paper to come home and to select which language, Ghanaian language, they will want to be taught in. It wasn't the thing. In Nkrumah's time, everybody just learned Ga. You were here, you learned the Ga language. And then they started doing that sort of thing. So you, the father or the parent, must have to choose the language for them to go and learn. And that is what happens up till today. But for the resilience of those who are still learning Ga and Dangme, the likelihood is that with the huge numbers, they will tell you that they also want to join them, follow their friends to go and learn Twi or some other language. And there's no attempt to really deal with that sort of situation. And I'm saying that beyond that came Peace FM, which started with Twi. And then some people did some research and said, oh, it has the largest listenership. So everybody wants to speak Twi. You have been set up here to speak English, to use English as the medium. I see you trying to speak Twi on a few occasions just to show that you are also part of that. What is that? Some of us listen to only English radio stations, Joy, City FM, and the rest. I don't listen to any other station. And then they started giving frequencies to them. Giving frequencies. Recently, I'm sure you have seen it being circulated on the media. When it comes to commercial FM stations in Accra, there's none that speaks Ga. None. There are people sitting there who are giving the frequencies. You think we don't ask for the frequencies?
What do they tell you when you ask?
That's what I'm telling you. They will tell us that there are no frequencies, commercial, but at least you can get community. So anywhere you see anybody speaking Ga, it's community. And what is the range of community radio? Where does it go? Where does it go? We applied. I did a case with a Ga-Dangme person here. I did an interview with Evans Mensah, who was doubting what I was saying about frequencies, blah, 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 blah. So I let her say, this guy, Ganyoni. Then somebody told me, call him, and ask him. So I called him and said, are you not guys? Yes, I come from Pong. We don't see his middle name, so nobody knows. Everywhere you have something we call Mensah, everybody is Mensah anywhere. So you say Evans Mensah. But the man is from Pong. I've not said this. He should also feel the way I'm feeling. That Uncle Ken's Adi, who come here, what's the other George Quays,
yes,
who come here, the Michael Papa Nia Shalis, who Ade no Gans, the gentleman who just showed his face, where is it? Nathaniel Atto. Ade no Gans.
They are.
Can't you speak Ga here? When you want to speak Ga, you are doing a Ga. Are they not in this house? And yet you choose not. And as I said before we started this program, you wait till March and then you play Ga music and call us because we are an historical fact. We should come and now learn about Gans in March. The whole of the year you have come together and you are playing Twi music, Kan music, other music. Look at those very nice Ewe guy. What is his name? They are very popular. One very nice Lala Koni Aigbegbe Kenue Komefe. Very nice.
Gamido.
I don't know. But I also listen to it. You can play all kinds of.
We play Ga songs.
Oh, you don't. I'm telling you, you don't.
I'm a big fan of
we play Adani Best.
Every chance I get, I play his music.
For me, I've told you, I don't want to listen to other radio stations. So I keep my dial on Joy, City, so and so. You know, the best you did was during some celebration. Was it last year that you have stayed for, you've been in this business for a certain number of years. And you put down a group of people. And all the musicians we called were Gans. Do you remember?
Yeah.
3 of them. I was following. I tell you, I don't listen to others, so I do listen. And that's why sometimes I send you messages and tell you that stop what you are doing. It's not fine. The other time I was giving praises to that guy who calls himself Christocentric something on Sundays.
Yes,
he plays everything, including Ga. Why don't you feel like Fifi forcing? I gave him thumbs up because I listen and I know what is happening. And then you should just turn over a new leaf. If you are really worried, that we are here and our land has become gold, people are selling in dollars. About pouring libation, it used to be on all national, or important days that you are what we call traditional prayers, Christian and Muslim prayers. All of a sudden, it fizzled out. You go to a national program and there's no libation being poured. Then we go to the Eastern region for an independence celebration. And we saw some people wearing cloth who had come, and they call it traditional prayer. And they are coming to pour libation. They were pouring libation, at the end of which I heard something. Modikasa. You play back the tape and you see them saying Modikasa. So it was good for them to go and pour libation in Kofridwa, but to stop pouring libation in Accra. That is what we are talking about. I mean, it was clear for everybody to see. Unfortunately, the person who fainted and died happened to be a Ghana person. The military officer, I've told you, look at the name, and you don't have to go anywhere. Don't anywhere. Unfortunately, the same. At the time our history was being bastardized, we sacrificed a human being who was on parade, and they had to die. You see, these things are not the best. You have tree-speaking, fancy or whatever in all Accra radio, town, and yet you ask them you want to do a program and to speak Ga, and they tell you we will not allow you to speak that even on our station. Yes, Peace FM, so whatever, they won't allow. Give us a slot because we are here. We wake up in the morning and we are bombarded with tree. Can we also have time to come? And I remember when, is it Ashokai or something, used to work here. Shoko.
Yes, Shoko.
Is it Ashoko?
Yes, it's Ashoko.
You try to do a program like that Sunday to allow somebody to do a Ga program. And I think it was given to I listened to Joy, I keep on telling you. And then it was a flash in the pan. And they stopped it. They don't give us even slot. We had to fight. Kennedy Ajipong was my client at a point when there was this whole idea of charging him with treason because he said, yes. I was the lawyer who did the case for him. We negotiated and gave us a slot on Oman on Saturdays, about 2 hours or so. We did the same with Radio Universe. Where does it go? It's a campus radio for School of Communication. Radio Universe, 6 to 10 on Saturdays. They used to, I think they gave them also Sunday, and that also had gone, is now Saturday. I was there for about almost 2 to 3 months explaining the Land Act in Ga. The rest didn't bother to do it. And so what we are saying is that, like, everything Ga is looked down upon, and then people create the impression that we don't even go to school. Now, I will crave your indulgence to take you through what I call Ga-Dangme professionals who achieve first status. Dr. Benjamin William Quarty Papafi was the first trained physician for the Gogos. Does the name look Mampo? Does it look like Mampo? Dr. C.E. Randolph, pioneer of infectious disease management, introduced the BST injection for yours. And fourth qualified as Dr. Frederick V. Nankambrus, OBE. Dr. Ebenezer Nimwe Brown, first Ghanaian dental surgeon. Second Ghanaian dental surgeon, Dr. Ezekiel Kofi Ngleshi Alatamanche. Nii Ayikoi Otoo. The third Ghanaian surgeon, Dr. Stephen Edu Ayi. We will call it Adu. You people will call it Edu. And fourth Ghanaian surgeon, dental surgeon, Dr. Kojo Odoi. Then we had Professor Ismon, who was the first Ghanaian surgeon and first dean of the University of Ghana Medical School. Harry Dodo was the first Ghanaian chartered accountant and first general manager, Cocoa Marketing Board, with Nana Eman Mould as deputy general manager. Eman Mould is not full Akan. He comes from Jamestown. Jacob Akberg Griffiths Randolph, first Ghanaian Commissioner of Income Tax. E.R. Tayua Majite, first Ghanaian police officer to have been appointed Commissioner of Police the Gogos and became first head of police force, equivalent to IGP. Dr. Mojaben Dowuna, first African Registrar, University of Gold Coast. Professor Emeritus John Kwateboy Mamum Kwote, first urologist and first lecturer in anatomy at the Ghana Medical School. Professor C.O. Kwakupom, first eye specialist. VCRAC Crab was the first parliamentary draftsman. Nii Tete Chinri Esse, second parliamentary draftsman. Litbrecht William Fifi Hesse, popularly called L.W. Fifi Hesse, was the first Ghanaian and African Rhodes Scholar. Professor Felix Konote Ahunu remains the first researcher in sickle cell anemia in Ghana. W.M.Q. Mam, first governor of the Bank of Ghana. Nii Amonkotai, artist and cartographer, designed Ghana's coat of arms. Chris Chui Esse, a former cinematographer, filmmaker, and administrator in Ghana, and President Nkrumah's personal photographer. All these things we see came from him. George, the stories about Nkrumah, his pictures, he was the one who documented them. George Kome Mills Odoi became the first Ghanaian Attorney General. Martin Persin Kofi became the first Ghanaian editor of the Daily Graphic. Ayele Komi was one of the first 2 trained Ghanaian female pilots. They will always be telling you about somebody from Achem, and 2 of them were trained. And Ayele Komi is there. Nobody seems to talk about her. James Bano established first color processing lamp. Lawyer Dove became the first president of the Ghana Bar Association. Professor Nii Ayikoi Otoo, first consultant oral, blah, 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 blah. You know, there are so many of them. Bofosu Ama, first dean of the School of Public Health. You know, so why do we create, even when it comes to beauty? If it comes to beauty, Naa Okale Shuta was the first Ghanaian to place 3rd at an international beauty contest. She placed 3rd. Naa Okale, does the name look any other? I'm telling you,
not
if you mention, you know.
I have to say, I mean, this is a wonderful mental image on which I want us to conclude our conversation today. Such an illustrious list, demonstrating clearly the pioneering spirit of the Ga-Dangme people, and no one could have articulated it better than you, Nii Ayikoi Otoo. I thank you so much for your time with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Indeed,
we can do it not only in March.
Absolutely, absolutely. We felt that fire. Nii Ayikoi Otoo is the president of the Ga-Dangme Council, and we've certainly enjoyed our time with